Hi everyone. Welcome to today's session organized by Afro Valley, a blockchain-focused organization based in Ethiopia. My name is Shiko Njadi. I am the head of marketing at Utu. Utu Technologies is a blockchain company headquartered in Nairobi, and we're building trust infrastructure for the internet. And before I go a little bit more into what Utu is about, I'm hoping some of you have been here before on previous sessions. And so the East Africa Blockchain event aims to highlight blockchain, distributed ledger technology, and the crypto economy by connecting policymakers, tech innovators, researchers, and of course the youth to understand the challenges and opportunities of the blockchain future. And so before I introduce the guest speaker for today, who will carry on with the presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about Utu. And so Utu is, when we say we're building the trust infrastructure for the internet, it sounds a bit, big, but really we're doing something very simple to build a more human-friendly internet. So as opposed to seeing star ratings with no context or anonymous, reviews when you go to shop on Jumia or, when you're looking for a place to visit, we replace anonymous star ratings and reviews with socially powered recommendations. So what that means is if you're looking for a service or a product, you will see your friends or family give feedback about it, because Utu's Trust Engine integrates into a business's platform, and it's able to check whether you're connected to the people who are giving the reviews and to show recommendations and feedback from those people that in your circle. And so in simple terms, for instance, instead of just seeing a 3-star rating, you would see, your friend Lucy liked this. And we've seen this work in the mobility sector, in e-commerce, and we are continuing to build that out. And so we use both machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. And that's why we are here today. And so that's just a brief introduction. And if you need to know more, if you have any questions, you can ask about this later. And so again, we are very passionate about data privacy, and which is one of our value systems where we give users full control to share their data, even while they build the trust for the brand that they're buying from or selling from. And so I'll dig right into today's topic on data privacy and introduce our guest speaker today. We have with us Mr. Sami Luciola, chairman of Think Dallas Limited. He will share with us how digital platforms and data have evolved to solve our social economic problems. And then, of course, he will delve into privacy and how it's handled not only at the national level, but regionally. And how, if we take data and treat it appropriately, we can build infrastructures that protect people's privacy. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sami.
Thank you, Shiko. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the organizers of the event. My topic actually read that was to talk about blockchain as an accelerator of IoT and data privacy. Now, you will have to allow me to share my presentation. It will guide me through what I prepared for this session. All right. Shiko, can you see my window?
It's loading. It's loading. Yes, we can see it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. To introduce myself, my name is Sami Luciola, and I'm chairman of Think Dallas. Think Dallas is a company we started a couple of years ago. Of course, it was a result of our consulting experience when we dealt with clients in various industries such as advertising, agriculture, healthcare, NGOs, and financial service sectors. We kept on getting one question: how can we be more effective and efficient in how we extract our limited resources. In terms of resources, we're talking about the data they have and the processes that they have internally. So we got to this space because we had quite a bit of experience in managing data in various fields within Kenya. The CEO of this company is Mr. Herbert Tu, who I believe should be in the webinar. I think he'll say hello as we go along. So that's it. For any more, I'll share with you later with a link to our website. Now, to start, I've broken this down into 4 sections because I wasn't so sure who the audience was for this webinar. So I had to make sure that we go through all the various key points and look at each section separately before we dovetail into how they can be integrated and how useful they can be for us.
Are you still there?
Yes, I am. Hello?
Yeah, we lost you there for a bit, but you're back.
Oh, so what did you hear last?
You just said that you are not sure about the audience, and then we lost you.
Sure, about, okay, I don't know. Can you hear me now? Because I can hear you very clearly.
Yes.
Hang on.
Yeah, you're back. You can hear me.
Okay, sorry. Let me share again. Well, let me talk through a couple of things before I put my presentation back. I was saying we weren't so sure about the composition of the attendees to this webinar, so we had to make sure that we can accommodate everyone. So we don't assume everybody's a techie. I'm sure there could be some decision makers around in the room. All right, so let's look at what we prepared. Let me know if you lose me again, yeah? So I'm going to share my window again. Okay, fine, fantastic. So, all right, I'm sharing my screen again.
Yeah, it's...
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Share? How about now?
Not yet. Yes, it's loading now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this conversation is going to be broken down into 4 broad sections, which number 1 will be IoT. I have to at least share an introduction around IoT, the use cases around IoT. In the second session, I'm going to talk about the trends and patterns that we have observed during our work here. And with that, we're going to share what IoT looks like for us in Africa, the challenges that are being experienced currently, and perhaps opportunities around that. Then section 3 will be about data privacy. And lastly, we'll go into blockchain as an accelerator. And after that, I was hoping to have sort of roundtable and have a discussion with the attendees on matters that we discussed, especially around data privacy and blockchain. So I hope the policymakers here that we can share some thoughts with. Shigo, I'm still on?
Cool. Yes,
All right,
please go ahead.
Okay. So, IoT, let me do a brief introduction into IoT. So IoT, Internet of Things, many people ask what this is. You know, to people like us in the industry, it's obvious, but it's not always obvious.
Yeah.
So
even to us.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So I'll make it very simple for us here. So what is IoT here? So the Internet of Things describes the network of physical objects, that's things, yeah, that are embedded with sensors, software, and other technologies for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems over the internet. Now, To a layman, this can be anything. I want to give you a scenario where you can think of a device that can be used, can be defined as an IoT device. I'm looking for one in my head right now. Oh, I'm thinking about what some of the projects are going in Kenya for, like instance, smart meters. Now, smart meters are beginning to replace traditional meters. What I mean by smart meters, these are meters that have sensors embedded in them to monitor the water flow, how much water is flowing through them, and also allow them to transmit that data back to the headquarters or the administrators of the water system. Now, it comes with a lot of advantages. For instance, if you have issues like leaks or whatever, water loss, what they call, it's called now accounting for water, it's easier to trace these things. And of course, you get alerts before they become serious. We'll talk about this later, which it's called predictive maintenance. So the Internet of Things is actually a very fast-growing industry, and it's targeted to transform cities, farms, factories, homes, and practically anything else to be more intelligent and efficient. So a report by Gartner a couple of years ago predicted that the total spending on IoT devices and services will reach almost 2 trillion in 2017. Now, this is an older report. So it said by 2017, which was 3 years ago, there will be more than 20 billion devices connected all over the world. Okay, well, they said by 2020, the devices connected will be like 20 billion. Now, before we go further, let me just show you a brief infographic of how IoT topography looks like. So there are 4 main components. Yeah, what we have, if we start from left going right, will be devices and sensors. They come in very, very many shapes and sizes. They could be those smartwatches that some of you may have on your wrists. They could be temperature controls, pressure gauges, and so forth and so on. All this normally connects through a network. There's some proprietary networks and some private, public ones. I can mention a few. GSM is actually a network that IoT can use. There's some private ones like LoRaWAN and Sigfox and so forth and so on. All of them connect to a gateway, which now ultimately pushes the data into a cloud server and ultimately to an end user or endpoint device that needs the user, the data to work with in some way or the other. That's the very simple version of what IoT works.
You know, as you were speaking, sorry, Sammy, I was just thinking of Hey Google and OK Google and Alexa. I think to a layman also, it's very clear when you say, you know, IoT is part of talking to devices to tell them to play music or to turn off the lights. Yeah,
that's very accurate. You're very right on that. That's actually what it is. But people don't market it as IoT. They'll try and sell the brand. So when you say, "Hey Google," you wouldn't know that you're talking to a sensor. You know, that's a lot of things for you.
Yeah.
So, you can see it relies on several technologies. Yeah, and from the sensor technologies to the connectivity can be anything like I told you. It can be your GSMs. It can be just a normal internet fiber, etc. And also, it also relies on data processing, meaning that you have to have tools, analytic tools that can manage this information. Remember, these things are very many, and they send lots of data. So how these data processing units are always very busy trying to process this data. But as they process it, also you have to understand, you have to be sure of what you're trying to extract from that data, you know, because lots of it are just numbers and digits. So you need data analysis to be able to extract maybe trends and other information that you can use. Now, Shiko, you mentioned that you were into AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
A lot of these sensors actually, the data that comes from them is also pushed towards some of the tools you use.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that. Yeah. So, but that's another topic for another day. Very interesting topic. But I think we should. I'd like us to talk about it one day. And of course, the final bit of the whole system is the user interface. Who's using it, and is it useful to the user at the end? Now, let's move on. So I want to showcase a few IoT use cases very quickly. All right. So I've got an infographic there, and you can see, I think Shiko, you mentioned a couple of them. Yeah. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So the use cases are many: wearables, online shopping, in-flight services, so forth and so on. But let me just also now start going a little granular and talk about certain use cases. One big use case that's emerging is smart cities. Now, smart cities, for those of you in Kenya, you know of a smart city that's under development called Konza City. So they are very, very keen on using IoT or leveraging on IoT. Yeah. Now, in their case, IoT can brings immense possibilities for them in terms of, like if they can monitor the air quality, monitor how much water is passing through their cities, monitor anything. So that way they can, to some degree, manage or reduce the environmental footprint of the city. I mean, the damage that the city can do to the environment is actually reduced. Also, IoT provides you this data for effective data-driven decision making. If you have data about something that's happening, and you know that based on the trends, something else would happen, it allows you to make decisions much quicker, and maybe quick decision making avoids other problems that can crop up later. With that, you also have improved infrastructure. If I may mention infrastructure, you can have smart traffic lights, for instance. You can have efficient public utilities, improve the life quality of the residents of the smart city. You can also use it to leverage revenue generation for the city itself. Yeah. So smart city is actually a very big topic, and I feel like I'm not doing it service by just reducing it to a few bullet points. But there's a whole ecosystem around smart cities that needs to be explored, but that could be another talk.
Yeah.
Now, another opportunity for IoT is education. Yeah, IoT devices can help you improve school management efficiencies. Then you have real-time data collection. Yeah, and when we talk about real-time data collection, what's happening everywhere in the school, and issues like security sometimes best dealt with when they're happening as quickly as possible. IoT you can have systems that allow you to know if there are issues to be addressed quickly. We have also improved resource management. Resources are many. It could be your money, it could be your time, yeah. And of course, resources are very limited when it comes to education, and also allows for your students to become to be globally interconnected. Yeah. So, like I said, even this is a very small description of what it can do for education. But due to the constraints of time, we'll just go through them as quickly as we can. In productivity, we're talking about how IoT lends itself to industries like manufacturing. Yeah, it allows you to automate and then, of course, at that point, optimize your operating efficiency. It helps in reducing of errors, allows for predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is actually quite important in some areas, especially people who are in large factories and industries, you have equipment that is almost breaking down, or you have systems that are not working optimally, you're able to detect and repair quickly before it becomes a bigger problem. And also, ultimately, it ends up reducing your operational costs. There are also opportunities in healthcare. I mean, of course, reduction of errors. In healthcare, errors are very costly. It can cost a life, and decrease costs, improve the patient experience, improve disease management, and of course also allow you to deploy home care. I mean, in this era of COVID, with IoT, you can have people in their own homes but being monitored remotely using IoT devices. Yeah. Okay, and I'm going to do a small case study on this retail and supply chain, but it's one of the biggest users of IoT right now as we speak globally. I think others I've not heard of, but tracking movement of goods and logistics is a key enabler it is a key enabler of supply chains, and responsible for moving goods and resources from one end of the supply chain to another. So you can monitor inventory, you can maintain equipment, and you can assess demand. Yeah, I wish I could. We'll get back to a case study for retail and supply chain. Okay, thank you. So, sorry, I don't think this is number 4, but it's number 2. I'm going to discuss about trends and patterns that you've observed. Shikon, is there anything you would like to ask before I move on?
No, please go on.
Okay, fantastic. Now, this report, what you're seeing in front of you is a prognosis of worldwide spending of the Internet of Things, IoT, from 2018 to 2023. This is in US dollars, in the billions. As you can see, by 2023, these are estimated spends. They're going to be so high. So the opportunity is quite huge for everyone who wants to get into it. And of course, it will attract attention as you go along. It's already attracting quite a bit of attention. So in the case of Africa, I think we're being left behind. I had a slide for Africa, but I don't think I was allowed to share it. Yeah, but it demonstrated the penetration of IoT around the globe, and surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, Africa is way behind. We only have Tunisia, South Africa leading the pack, and then maybe some countries like Egypt, and we also have an opportunity as Kenya to come up, but there's a lot of work that needs to go into that first. So the second fragmented reports, sorry, Media, on the uptake of IoT in Africa. So I'm going to read a small quote from one of the CEOs in Africa. While Africa may be developing as a continent, it has shown great promise and opportunity in the past decade. This can be seen in the continent's eagerness to transcend to the 4th industrial revolution. Now, when you talk about the 4th industrial revolution, we're talking about things like blockchain, IoT, machine learning, of course, the whole concept of AI. This was Jim Holland, the regional director of Africa, Lenovo Data Center Group. Donald made this comment. Now, maybe this is the point we start talking about Africa as a market for these technologies. I think we'll have a conversation later and ask ourselves, where are we on this, and why don't we know so far behind?
Yeah, I was laughing because someone just asked, how much of the $1 billion cake is in Kenya? And you were talking about that.
All right. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to share some data as proprietary, but I think I can give you estimations. However, the money is not money is not funding really. Don't think about it as funding. It's about what other people are investing, yeah, towards IoT. Yeah. So the point is that we as Africans also have to start thinking about how to put money into IoT as ourselves as a government, the way we put money into other research areas. Yeah. I hope I answered that person. Eh? So it should
Let's
think
hope so.
it's as a global fund. Yeah, but
Let's hope we've answered you.
There are actually projects maybe that could fund if he has a project or she has a project. I don't know the person. All right. So let me just briefly talk about the IoT challenges in Africa as we stand right now. Yeah, I've just picked the four most pressing challenges. Number one is skills. I don't know about Shiko, but getting ready, people who have been trained and understand is proven to be very difficult. As a matter of fact, we are forced to train our own people. It's a cost, but I think it's an important cost to bear. And I think if any policymakers here, they should think about equipping our young people with skills. These skills are going to be very, very important in the years to come. Otherwise, we'll be left behind.
Yeah.
The other issue is infrastructure. This is connectivity and power. When they talk about infrastructure, there, of course, there's internet penetration. We're talking about generally about Africa. In Kenya, we're quite privileged that we've done pretty well with internet connectivity, but it's not the same story in many other African countries. What you'd expect to be for a Kenyan traveling to a foreign country, you'd find it quite frustrating that you just can't get internet on demand. So, I'm sure even Shiko, you can't imagine being off the internet for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's one of our biggest issues. Thirdly, security. And when I talk about security, now this is what we're going to talk about later, is about data security. Yeah. We have people, how secure is our data?
Yeah.
The questions we're going to ask. And I think that's where we're going to dovetail into the blockchain.
Yeah.
In security. Security is an issue. And the last bit, the last one is the costs. Hardware here, hardware in this region is pretty expensive. And well, as much as we can, well, I don't know, but I believe partly because of the tax regimes in many African countries, maybe if the policymakers in the room today, they could tell us how we can make them less expensive. Oh, by the way, we can actually build some of these devices. I've met a few people around, few young engineers who are able to do this, to fabricate this device. So when talking about costs, if we bring these costs in-house, in terms of we start producing them ourselves. Go away and reducing the cost. And I think I should point out one thing here. Like some of the technologies we use for IoT, like say for instance, LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN is more a standard, yeah, like say Android is standard. So anybody can sort of build a device as long as it conforms to those standards. You understand? Like GSM is a standard. Not everybody, you can come together. The engineers in the room can tell you how it works. But these things can be done here. And I think as Africans, we do have a lot of expertise around that. So we should think about ways of promoting it. All right. Now, let me come to data privacy. Talk a little bit about data privacy. And let's talk about it. So what is it? Yeah. So I'll give you a definition. So data privacy or information privacy is a branch of data security concerned with the proper handling of data. And this means consent, notice, and regulatory obligations. All right. So the point I want to make here is a bit different than you might be expecting. I wanted to talk about the difference between data privacy and data security. And I think I need to skip a slide. I'll come back to that slide. Let me talk about this slide first and do a quick differentiation between data privacy and data security. So data privacy, data security, and data privacy are used interchangeably in the market. I hear people using the same term, data privacy and data security, and they sort of believe it's the same thing, but it's not. They're very distinct differences. All right.
Yeah.
So number one, data security is what protects data from compromise by external hackers and malicious insiders. All right. And data privacy governs how data is collected, shared, and used. All right. So privacy means how you pick up a data and how you look at it. I mean, what can you see from my data? Security is like the encryptions and whatnot. Actually, so blockchain, I believe, but this will be a very good topic for us to argue on. But I think this is where blockchain should be under data security, yeah, and how it will enhance data privacy. True. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that.
So I don't know. I was hoping for this discussion here where we can discuss. I mean, I want to hear the opinions why they believe data privacy is important. So if they can ask questions, I don't know if they can be allowed to speak up or they'll just chat.
I think they'll just post comments.
Okay.
Yeah, because already I can see one other comment from Brian.
Yes.
And he's saying that there's a common concept that IoT technology works preferably on 5G networks. Isn't that a fact that is slowing the progress, considering 5G is slowly rolling out in the African continent?
Oh, thank you. That's a very good question, actually, Brian. Well, it's rolling out, it's not out there. But where we are right now, we have a lot of, we have established networks that we use right now. For instance, GSM is the most, GSM, I think the 4G in Kenya. I don't know about other African countries. And also we can't guarantee that they'll roll out this 5G in other countries. In Kenya here, they've started rolling out in Western Kenya, but nobody has reported back and said they've experienced it. But as much as that's happening, there are other providers who are slowly, have it already on the ground. Yeah. So it depends on your use case and what you want to do with your your IT devices. So before 5G hits everywhere, we have to use what's available. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. This guy is called
who? Brian.
Yeah, Brian. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's the one who asked that question.
Is he still around?
Maybe if he can comment. We can go on. Maybe he'll comment further if you've answered the question.
Yeah. So, well, okay, how much of this $1 billion cake is in Kenya? No, Kevin Maura. Mr. Maura, I mentioned earlier, I've just seen his comment now because I've not seen.
The one I mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I hope he understands that it was not a donation. These funds are not cake ready to be given to Kenyans. It's how much can we put together and then advance our IoT, whatever we're trying to do with it. Now, I've just seen another question from Brian. He says he's in. So I wish we could talk, but clearly I'll have to wait for your comments to come through. Yeah, but that conversation about the technologies, and I think we can have it separately. I can figure out a way of sharing with you the different networking solutions around IoT before 5G, because when 5G does not have a time frame, in my opinion, across Africa. You could go somewhere into the desert and you have to figure out what to use if there's no 5G or there's no GSM. Even satellite is a possibility. Yeah. So let me get back to my presentation.
To the data privacy discussion, and maybe as you get back to it, it's interesting that we're talking about data privacy and blockchain, because depending on who's looking at blockchain, there are people who believe that blockchain is actually trustless, because the idea has been sold to them that it's about anonymity and all that. But really, you're right in saying that it's a network where you see things publicly. A public ledger where you see records stored publicly and for everyone to see what's happening. So even at Utu, what we are trying to do is bridge that gap between what is trust and and how are we collecting the data. Because, for instance, there's one thing that I didn't mention about Utu, and there's a protocol that incentivizes users to offer valuable feedback on the platform that they are on, and they are given rewards in terms of tokens, so that you're not buying trust, you're building trust on the blockchain based on what users are saying about a product or a service. And all this data, when they provide it, it's completely permissioned. So you say that data privacy is how it's collected and shared, and we are very passionate about that. People give permission for their data to be collected, and they very, very clearly check, I have given permission for this data to be shared. And like you say, data is the cornerstone, or is the base that really builds, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's all based on data, and we have to be very, very careful how we're using people's data, right? And so I completely agree in terms of what data privacy is and how it will help with blockchain and the Internet of Things, and just building the infrastructure that is right to help people around the globe.
Yeah, thank you, Shiko. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I can proceed to. I see no other questions, so I'll try and proceed to the blockchain and the Internet of Things, and see how these things dovetail. So I was watching a webinar from some professors from MIT, and of course they have very deep knowledge of this subject matter, and they were talking about how blockchain is an enabler. By itself, it's not a service. Blockchain it's an enabler of other platforms.
Yes.
It's an enabling platform by itself, isn't it? And other services. Yeah. Now, blockchain introduces trust without involving a third party. That's the beauty about blockchain. Yeah. And it also reduces the cost of verification. Like in a transaction, normally there'd be a lot of back and forth just to be sure that you're dealing with the right person and that the stuff, the content with which that you're handling is actually valid, that kind of thing. The costs that are associated with those transactions. So blockchain, I think one of the things it's managed to do is reduce that cost of verification. Now, when you talk about IoT, Internet of Things, there is a lot of devices, talking to each other. Very many devices. And some can be localized and some can be across several networks. Yeah. So as this is how the dovetail. The blockchain will ultimately allow IoT devices to trust one another. If a device needs to make a decision based on certain parameters, and the data the transactional data requires comes from a very remote or other device or that will give it input. If it goes through a trusted blockchain platform, that will really play a role in improving the rollout of these applications. Yeah, so like I said, blockchain is designed as a basis for applications that involve transaction and interactions.
Yes.
So that's how I see blockchain really accelerating IoT. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, for sure. Blockchain, has so many use cases, including, finance and like you said, Internet of Things, where really people can build a lot of apps, and they are building a lot of apps and platforms that are decentralizing, traditional systems as we know them. So for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so the question is, honestly, how do these devices trust one another? Yeah, because there's lots of data flying. You don't have time for human verification.
Yeah.
So how?
Yeah.
So think about 1,000 devices sending data to one server somewhere. I don't think it's humanly possible to verify that each token is valid. But if you have a blockchain framework around it, and these are conversations that are still going on. I'll share some infographics. These ones I skimmed off the IBM. There's a IBM has shared a lot of data around their efforts around blockchain for IoT. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So one of the three key benefits that IBM has shared with us is that blockchains allows for the building of trust, build trust between parties and devices. It also reduces the risk of collusion and tampering. So like I said, this is data flowing between several endpoints. You don't want people, the man in the middle, to try and start changing stuff as it travels along. So blockchain has come through for that, to reduce that risk.
Yeah.
So of course, sorry, just allow me. Let me go back and just read about the revenue. Reduce costs by removing overhead associated with middlemen and intermediaries. Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. With blockchain, you no longer have the need for middlemen. And I think we talked about this earlier before, about the reduction of costs, the costs of verification. Yeah. And thirdly, another key benefit of blockchain in IoT or for IoT is to accelerate transactions. Yeah. You reduce settlement time from days to near instantaneous, blockchains are almost really quick, So something that would take a human or a team a few days to come through would be completed, in a second. Snap.
Yeah.
So blockchain for IT, it's a game changer. Leveraging blockchain for your IT data offers new ways to automate business processes among your partners without setting up a complex and expensive centralized IT infrastructure. Yeah. Meaning you can use other people's resources without having to build a full stack of your own. Yeah. So blockchain also, the data protection fosters a stronger working relationship with your partners and greater efficiencies as partners take advantage of the information provided. Yeah. So at this point, I don't know if there are any questions that I need to answer.
Yeah. Okay. So more of a comment here from Madenge Waweru.
All right.
He says that the Internet of Things meets the Internet of Value. Both are networks and have nodes that interact with one another. Makes sense.
Well, thank you. I think I should note that down. It sounds like something I should use myself.
Thanks, Madenge.
Thanks, Madenge. Yeah.
And then there's a question from Robert Yahweh, and he says that since most IoT devices work over low power communications, platforms like LoRa and Sigfox, shouldn't we be building these networks fast as 4G and 5G mainly offers backhaul connectivity?
That's clearly a guy who's been doing his homework. Yes. Actually, that's how these networks actually compete, because from what I know, LoRa offers very low power and very long range. I think that's one of the selling points. There have been instances where they say they get to over 10 kilometers. So you can imagine if you want to say monitor a really large area. Think about if you have a 10,000 acre farm. Number one, you need to cover all the sensors around, and number two, you need to be sure where your sensors are, because low power means that they can last longer. So they have advantages over 5G or 4G and 5G, because sensors are able to last longer. With 5G and 4G, one of the biggest issues is power consumption on the sensors themselves, because these sensors tend to be out in the field where maybe there's no power source, and if they are continually pinging or sending data, you find that they won't last, and the cost of replacement of batteries is really high. That's why, for instance, LoRa is very strong in that field. You understood that?
I hope you've answered, Robert.
So actually, I agree with him. He's made a comment, actually. He says that we should be. Can you just put back that comment he said? So he says the Internet of Things means the Internet of. No, this is not. This is Badenge.
Yeah, that one.
Robert says, since most IoT devices work over low power communications platforms like LoRa and Sigfox, shouldn't we be building these networks fast as 4G and 5G mainly? Okay, so his question was actually a little different. He's suggesting
although he says you've answered him, but go ahead.
The bit of the question, I've not answered, I've not addressed, He said, should we be building these networks? The answer is yes, we should. We should actually. And why we should is because these networks, if you build them, for instance, if you build a national LoRa network, for instance, you can actually recoup your money. I've been leasing it out to other users the same way GSM works. But the thing is, who will build them? So we have to talk to each other and figure out how the industry could come together and see how we can do this, because it will benefit everyone. I know the government is a big stakeholder. They can. Okay, let me not localize this, because this is an Africa-wide conversation. I think governments should step in and see how they can enable other SMEs or other companies to leverage on IoT by building this infrastructure out. The same way they build roads. Government builds big infrastructure like roads. I think building an IoT network will not be that costly. But then I stand to be corrected, because there could be some people who actually do, the engineers who deploy these networks, and maybe they understand the intricacies around setting up these networks better than I do. But just to answer Mr. Yahweh, I think, yes, we should consider building out these networks.
Cool.
I hope I've not answered that one. So I'll proceed to case study on blockchain logistics. And this is a very simple one, how blockchain can be used in the supply chain. So I don't know if it's clear enough for the viewers, but this tries to break it down into some really small steps, like a supplier comes and gives an RFID code with products information. So RFID is like a sticker that's put on, it's a code that's normally put on packaging, allows people to identify the product. Now, the thing is following this product to its natural destination. So basically what would happen, this product will travel through several, I think, warehouses. It will, if it's going abroad, it will be probably flown or shipped. Then it has to be warehoused and tracked to the retailer. And at the end of that chain, when the client purchases that product, the client should be able to use the same QR code to know about the product that they're pursuing. Even beyond just the supply chain for goods and services. In fact, this one is around food products. You should be able to know where the meat came from. So, and if there's an issue with the meat, you can actually, I think it's called farm to fork. You can actually go to the beginning and figure out where the problem occurred. Yeah, and this can also be extrapolated to things like in this age of vaccines, like the COVID vaccines, there's some that require certain ways of being handled. So you can have IoT devices that actually monitor the vaccine from where it was manufactured to when it got to the person who used it. If there's maybe temperature fluctuations along the way, it should be able to alert people, or not alert, at least record it so that at some point we can say, oh, this is not good to use. Or if something happened, we're able to trace back and figure out what went wrong along the supply chain. Well, it's a bit more complex than I'm trying to put it, but yes, IoT is very good in this. But what we're looking at here is how blockchain comes through for this process, yeah? Because with a blockchain, with blockchain behind it, the data becomes immutable, so that never cheat. So for instance, we're looking at a meat product here. Say it left 3 weeks ago, and it comes to me and I'm told, oh no, this is from last week and it's fresh. Of course, if you have blockchain behind that, you can't lie. You can't you can't change the records, and then you're improving public safety. So blockchain is changing a lot of the ways we're dealing with ourselves nowadays. I don't know if you have a question on that so far.
Yeah, there's a question.
All right.
From Madenge, who is asking how you can deal with poor data entry for the supplies being tracked.
Okay. Now, Madenge, this is a tricky question because when you're dealing with IoT, really, there's very little human intervention. See, because we're talking about blockchain and IoT specifically. So what we're trying to say is that we're minimizing any human interaction with the data. As a matter of fact, in my previous slide, I mentioned the fact that you could, let me actually see if I can read it. Yeah, this one. Reduce risk of collusion and tampering. So can you see building trust? Shiko, can you see that?
Yeah, we can
see. Yeah, so I think his question revolves around trust. Yeah, he's saying a poor data entry. This is how I understand this question. Now, poor data entry is like tampering with the information that's supposed to come in, but with IoT, there's very little human data entry, really. So that should not come. Beyond that, actually, I'm finding it difficult to see how I can assist in poor data entry for supplies being tracked, because all the suppliers are supposed to be marked with or the RFID is once it's labeled on the automatically on the products being shipped, it's going to be really difficult for it to be tampered with, unless now that's a criminal It's just criminal now. I mean, you're removing tabs and stealing boxes, which is still a challenge. But I don't think that's a challenge that you're going to fix, because we need better security systems around there.
Yeah, I still think, with any technology, there's still a weak link somewhere when we are dealing with ourselves as humans. So that's still debatable, and it's still things that are still being addressed in terms of, the person who entered and how careful they were, and how immutable that data will be in the long run.
Yeah, so the beauty
So
about
it's a very
is
good question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, once the data is in, I'm trying to tell. The question is, before the data gets in, I think that's where this question lies. There's really nothing you can do. But once it's in the system, you can't remove it from the system.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So let me quickly move on. I didn't realize this was going to take longer than 30 minutes. So I'm not going to talk about all this. Yeah. So these are some use cases around blockchain. Say, for instance, in logistics. So using a platform with this technology will guarantee that the coordination of necessary documents to identify and validate the cargo gets easier and safer and reduces the paperwork. We can enter into smart contracts, meaning whose validity and fulfillment we can verify in real time. So a supplier and a retailer can get into and have the devices talking to each other, and just guaranteeing that everything they're doing is up to scratch. Actually, it's trustworthy. That's the word I should use. The system also offers scalability, resulting in immediate solutions as the demand of fast order deliveries increase. So you can think about the big suppliers in this world, the Alibabas and the Amazons. At some point, they can't rely on people scanning these things. So they have to run through bells, and the bells scan them, and the system knows where everything is. Yeah. And that really improves efficiency for huge people like that. And I think Africa should take advantage of this kind of setups. And the trust generated by the truthfulness also eliminates the need for constant audits. I'm sure you're aware. Let me talk about the Kenya scenario where the shops, chemists routinely shut down to take stock of what's in their system. If they had ways of managing, well, sometimes loss, you can't really avoid loss, but there's some that you can manage to a greater degree. Yeah. So the challenges, of course, before we finish, we have to talk about the challenges around the whole blockchain and IoT setup. And I think Mr. Madenge, I hope he's around. We can look at this very quickly. So the challenges sometimes around the trade of between power, consumption, performance, and security. Okay, let me move on to another one because that will take a while to explain. So that's one of the challenges anyway. The compromising between concurrency and throughput. This occurs when, for instance, IoT does not push a lot of data. Normally, it pushes very, very tiny amounts of data. And if you're using it in situations where you have to, I don't know about blockchain, how much data I also think it uses very little blockchain data. The blocks are actually, the tokens are very small. So sometimes we have a problem around how much data is pushed through these systems, and how much can actually be processed in good time. Yeah. Okay, just leads up to the next question, and the next problem, which is handling big data on the blockchain. This I've not experienced myself, but I believe it's something that might be worth considering. maybe Mr. Madenge has had an experience with that. He can tell us. But it's one of the highlighted challenges that have emerged, experienced by other players. Now, there's a compromise between transparency and privacy. Yeah, what can and what cannot be seen. That we'll speak about in the next slide, because I wanted to keep that for last. Because that has been an issue even with the EU. The other thing is like regulation. Regulators also sometimes do not have the proper regulatory frameworks for this technology. Yeah. So you start deploying, and then a couple of months later, the government comes up with new regulations that you need a license for this spectrum or whatever, you know. So sometimes we have such challenges. Yeah. And IoT device and connectivity, that's normal, that's common, and that's what's most common. And that's where choosing the technology you use for your IoT is really critical. Yeah. Sorry, I'm rushing a little bit because I know I am out of time. Okay, I wanted to have this as a conversation, the challenges of blockchain and regulators. Yeah. And I hope we can have a conversation with some of the people around. So, the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, that's GDPR, faced a problem whereby blockchain's actual immutability of data becomes, it goes against their privacy laws. For instance, there was talk about the right to be forgotten. Say something happened many years ago, and their laws stipulate that perhaps after a certain duration of time, that information should be forgotten so that I can continue without any issue. But think about it this way. Now, if this information is embedded in a blockchain, I mean, how? I know this is a big topic. You can actually Google it and see how. I mean, why it's still an ongoing conversation. Why the data privacy, blockchain, and regulation can collide at some point. And I'd like some comments on this so that we can have some conversation around it before perhaps I close or hand over to Shiko.
Yeah, I think it's very deep. It's a big debate there, because obviously the very reason blockchains exist is to preserve, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's interesting. It will be interesting to see what other people think about that.
Okay, but then actually has posted something here. I think it says I've gotten into big data, but I can say that writing data to the blockchain is costly and takes a lot of space. All right, yeah, I think he's responding to one of the challenges I said existed in integrating IoT and blockchain. Yeah. So yeah, but Shiko, actually, here I'd like to hear your comment, your personal comment about the right for Shiko's privacy and the immutability of blockchain. So your data was stored in a blockchain 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you want it out. Of course, if you remove it, then the chain becomes invalid, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was saying. It really goes against one of the core, values or factors that we all run to blockchain to help with certain things in different sectors. So I think, like you said, it's still an ongoing debate, and it would be interesting to see where that goes. But for me personally, I believe even currently, we say the internet never forgets. So even when things are deleted, someone else will have saved it somewhere, even without the blockchain, right? So some of these things, and hopefully I'm not talking about a dystopian world where, data becomes this shadow that's always following us with our bad deeds.
No, there's also the idea of financial data. For instance, an individual gets listed by the CRB, and of course, I think they give you a time period, maybe 7 years. I think the law says they can expunge the data, but if the data is in a blockchain, what happens?
It stays there. If the blockchain is, it's immutable and everything is preserved there. I don't think it's really a matter of debate. It's a matter of who is using it, and are they willing to take that, into account and know that this will forever be there.
So right? I'm seeing a comment from Brian. Have you seen it yourself?
Yeah.
It says the most profound weakness is that policymakers discuss a lot and not put any items into action. Okay, this claims that that's his opinion, but it's a good opinion, Brian, in my opinion. That's a good opinion because a lot of policymakers are not experts. And sometimes when they're making a policy, I don't think they're doing it, I believe it's not done from a bad place. I believe sometimes it's just lack of adequate information. So I think I'm very happy about this conversation that's happening today. It's a beginning, yes, but with time, we have to find channels to have a bigger voice and help guide these policymakers. Because these policymakers they're part of us. They're one of us. I'm sure we know them, but we don't know they're doing the policies out there. So if we can organize forums where we can talk to them and or they can reach out to us. I know in Kenya, I'm talking about Africa. In Kenya, I think we have a pretty good framework where we talk to each other. And I know there's a lot of push and pull, but I think it's a healthy push and pull. Because ultimately what gets to happen is that any policy that comes out tends to be well thought out. Yeah. And of course, we have to understand that mistakes can be made, like the Europeans are finding out right now. What they were doing when they were coming up with their policies, it was intended to protect, the users, the clients. But clearly it's not, or rather there's a complication that they didn't see coming along. But I think, I don't know, my opinion would be like, let's make these mistakes and then have ways of correcting them as we go along. Yeah. So I was going to end my conversation around how the blockchain and data privacy can be accelerated. I mean, how blockchain can accelerate data privacy. But I think from my research, I see we're not quite there yet. Yeah, a lot of conversations still have to be hard.
To be heard,
yeah. And there's these policymakers have to also understand what's going on before anything happens. So I don't want to be the first to make a statement of how we should use blockchain to accelerate it without full understanding. And maybe I will need to sit with other experts in the field and have a conversation and see what comes through.
Yeah, Madange is saying something that is very true. He says permissioned blockchains can help to make that possible, where certain data can be hidden after a period of time. Just a thought.
Thank you, Madange. That's a save for me because I didn't know much about permissioned blockchains. But if that's the thing, then I think if policymakers can understand that kind of thing, it would be wonderful. And I think you should include Mr. Madange in your panel of experts.
Permissioned blockchains. That's very true. And some of the things that we're trying to achieve, even at Utu, is really complementing data sharing, data privacy with permissions. And I mentioned that at the beginning. It's really of essence to express to people that, data can be shared, and it can be shared by trusted entities, and they can use them to the extent that they want them to use them. They have full control of their data so that they're not, scared. Because I think another issue with, IoT, the challenges you mentioned, the skills, and infrastructure and connectivity and everything, I also think there's that stereotype, or there's a trust issue where we come from, even as Africans, about internet and technology, and we think it will come and take over, and it will become like a Black Mirror. I don't know how many people have watched Black Mirror, but Black Mirror really paints a very scary picture of IoT sometimes. And so I think, again, like you said, it's about conversations being had and really building a bridge between technology and real life, and how we trust in this in the world and online.
Yes, thank you, Chico. It looks like I've exceeded the time allocated to me.
Yeah, this has been very interesting. It has been very interesting. We lost track of time.
Yeah, I think next time what we can do, we'll give us more time at least, and we can talk about a lot more things, and perhaps a lot more speakers, Mr. Matenga included, and yeah. So thank you everybody for. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to me. That I really appreciate, and I'm honored to be here today. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chico, for moderation. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you, everyone. It's been lovely, and let the conversation continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.